The car industry wrote its rulebook over 100 years ago. Internal combustion engines shall not exceed 40% thermal efficiency. Cars drive on land. Trucks haul cargo. Pickup trucks run diesel. Phone companies make phones. These were not suggestions. These were engineering laws, treated as gospel by Mercedes, enforced by Toyota, celebrated by Porsche, worshipped in Detroit. For a century, every single automaker on Earth operated inside the same invisible walls. Nobody questioned them. Nobody dared. The engineers who built these rules were brilliant. The companies that defended them were powerful. The institutions that enforced them were ancient. And between them, they constructed an industry that had not fundamentally surprised anyone in decades. Then China looked at that rulebook and decided it was optional. In the space of 5 years, not 50, not 25, sadly 5. 5 Chinese vehicles did what engineers in Stuttgart, Detroit, Tokyo, and Wolfsburg spent decades insisting could not be done. A pickup truck with a powertrain nobody had ever built before. An engine that shattered a 100-year efficiency ceiling. An SUV that does not wade through rivers, it drives through them. A 6x6 ground vehicle that deploys a flying drone from its boot. And a phone company that sent a car to Germany and broke Porsche's lap record on Porsche's own circuit. 5 vehicles. 5 rules. All dead. This is what happens when an entire industry stops asking for permission. 5 cars. 5 categories that the automotive world considered either impossible or absurd. And not one of them came from a country with 100 years of automotive heritage. Every single one came from China. In 5 years, for over 60 years, the global pickup truck segment operated on one universal truth. Diesel means range, torque, and real-world capability. The idea of combining diesel combustion with plug-in hybrid electrification had been discussed in engineering circles for years, and dismissed every single time. The thermal management challenges between a diesel combustion cycle and a high-voltage electrification system were considered too complex and too costly to resolve in a production vehicle. The emissions compliance burden added another layer of near-impossible engineering. The weight of battery packs in a work vehicle reduced payload to unacceptable levels, and the charging infrastructure required to make the system viable simply did not exist across the remote regions where pickup trucks earn their keep. The outback of Australia, the farmlands of South Africa, the construction sites of rural Canada. Toyota built the Hilux on conventional diesel logic. Ford built the Ranger on conventional diesel logic. Isuzu, Mitsubishi, Nissan, all of them. Every manufacturer that ever sold a dual-cab utility vehicle to a working driver anywhere on Earth followed the same formula. Decade after decade, nobody attempted a diesel plug-in hybrid powertrain. The rulebook said it could not be done. Chery did not read the rulebook. The Chery Stockman, internally codenamed KP31, arrives in the 4th quarter of 2026 as the world's first diesel plug-in hybrid pickup truck. Nothing else exists in this category. No other manufacturer has announced one. No other manufacturer has confirmed one. The Stockman owns this segment entirely. The powertrain pairs a 2.5-liter twin-turbo 4-cylinder diesel engine, producing 210 kilowatts and 650 newton-meters of torque, with a dedicated electric motor and high-voltage battery system. The result: 170 kilometers of pure electric driving range on a full charge. Total range exceeding 1,300 kilometers on a single tank and charge combined. Thermal efficiency rated at 47%, higher than any conventional diesel powertrain currently in the segment. Vibration reduced by 30% compared to standard diesel operation. Towing capacity of 3.5 tons. Payload of 1,000 kilograms. Australia has been confirmed as the first international market, with Chery's local chief operating officer stating publicly that the diesel plug-in hybrid option sits at the very top of his priority list for Australian buyers. Chery revealed the Stockman concept at an Australian media event in February 2026. The production vehicle is confirmed for the fourth quarter of this year. The Ford Ranger plug-in hybrid runs petrol. The Toyota Hilux has no plug-in option at all. The GWM Canon Alpha runs petrol plug-in hybrid. Not one Western or Japanese manufacturer has answered the diesel plug-in hybrid question. Chery answered it first. In production. Shipping this year. On the 13th of April, 2026, a Chinese company walked up to a wall that engineers had spent over 100 years treating as permanent and knocked it flat. Thermal efficiency. The measure of how much energy from burning fuel is actually converted into useful motion rather than wasted as heat. In 1908, when Henry Ford launched the Model T, that figure sat at around 15%. Over the following 118 years, the greatest engineering minds in automotive history spent billions of dollars and millions of engineering hours chipping away at it. Toyota's 2ZR engine, the gold standard of hybrid thermal efficiency, the benchmark that every engineer on Earth measured themselves against, reached 41% after 3 decades of refinement. BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Honda, Hyundai, all operating in the same band, between 38 and 42%. 40% became the psychological ceiling of the entire industry. Breaking it required exotic materials, enormous development budgets, and generations of incremental refinement. The theoretical maximum for a mass production engine was debated extensively. The consensus was somewhere between 44 and 45%. Achievable perhaps, but decades away. Geely achieved 48.41% in a production engine, confirmed publicly on the 13th of April, 2026. The system pairs a dedicated 1.5-liter GDI hybrid engine running at 44.5% thermal efficiency in isolation, with an advanced dedicated hybrid transmission operating at 98.5% mechanical efficiency. The combined system output reaches 48.41%. To understand the scale of this achievement in real-world terms, at 41% efficiency, Toyota's hybrid engine wastes 59% of every drop of fuel as heat. At 48.41%, Geely wastes 51.59%. That gap, nearly 7 full percentage points, does not sound dramatic written on paper. In engineering terms, it represents the equivalent of 30 years of incremental progress delivered in a single product announcement. Toyota spent 3 decades climbing from 35 to 41%. Geely cleared the entire distance and then kept going. The engine is not a concept. It is not a research paper. It is not a laboratory result. It is production-ready hardware, confirmed for deployment across Geely's hybrid lineup and positioned for global market export. 118 years of thermal efficiency research. One announcement, one number, 48.41. Every off-road vehicle ever manufactured operates on the same fundamental contract with water. You can cross it carefully. You cannot drive through it freely. Wade depth, the maximum depth of water a vehicle can safely traverse, is one of the most carefully scrutinized specifications in the entire off-road segment. The Land Rover Defender, 900 millimeters. The Toyota Land Cruiser, 700 millimeters. The Ford Bronco, 851 millimeters. These figures represent the absolute limit of passive waterproofing. Sealed chassis components, raised air intakes, reinforced electrical systems before water defeats the vehicle entirely. Every manufacturer on Earth accepted this contract. China canceled it. The Jetour G700 Arc Edition does not wade through water. It navigates water. That distinction is not semantic. It is the difference between surviving a river crossing and controlling one. The G700's GAIA Arc technology deploys an independent 800-volt water fording system that activates upon entering water. The combustion engine decouples from the drive wheels entirely. Power redirects to dedicated underwater propulsion systems built into the vehicle's architecture. The G700 achieves controlled forward movement, active steering, gyroscopic stability, and directional control on the water's surface. Not briefly, not in an emergency, deliberately. In October 2025, the G700 crossed the Yangtze River, not a shallow stream, not a flooded track at an off-road event. The Yangtze, one of the longest and most powerful rivers on Earth. In April 2026, Jetour repeated the demonstration publicly at Auto China in Beijing. Witnessed by media representatives from over 20 countries, 892 horsepower, plug-in hybrid powertrain, 1,400 kilometer total range, crab walk mode, tank turn capability, and now controlled river navigation. But China did not write this chapter once. BYD's Yangwang U8 arrived at exactly the same conclusion through an entirely different engineering path. The U8's amphibious system uses its 4 fully independent electric motors, one per wheel, to achieve controlled water movement, with each unit operating independently to maintain directional stability even in fast-moving currents. 2 manufacturers, 2 engineering teams operating separately, 2 fundamentally different approaches to the same problem. And both arrived at the same answer. The automotive rulebook said that cars stop at water. China said no, and then China said it twice. The flying car has been a broken promise for 80 years. Since the 1940s, engineers, entrepreneurs, and futurists have stood on stages around the world and declared that personal aviation was 5 years away. It was never 5 years away. The fundamental problem was always identical. A vehicle designed to drive is a terrible aircraft. A vehicle designed to fly is a useless car. Every single attempt to merge the two produced something that did neither well. Structural compromises destroyed driving dynamics. Weight penalties destroyed flight performance. Regulatory nightmares grounded every prototype before a single customer could take delivery. The flying car became the most reliable punchline in the history of automotive ambition. XPeng did not attempt to build a flying car. XPeng decided the problem itself was wrong. The land aircraft carrier is a 6-wheel drive ground vehicle, a 6x6 hybrid electric mothership, with a fully detachable 2-seat electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft integrated into its rear cargo section. Upon arrival at a destination, the rear hatch opens. The aircraft slides out on rails. It lifts off vertically, carrying 2 passengers at low altitude to wherever the road cannot go. The 2 systems share a platform and a charging architecture. Nothing else. The aircraft does not carry the weight of road suspension, heavy chassis structures, or oversized road batteries into the sky. The ground vehicle does not compromise its structural integrity to accommodate wings or rotors. Each system does one thing. Each does it without compromise. This modularity eliminates every single problem that destroyed every previous flying car attempt across 8 decades. At the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in January 2025, the land aircraft carrier made its first international debut. The response was not measured industry interest. It was 7,000 cumulative pre-orders before the first manned test flight had been completed. That test flight took place on the 23rd of December 2025. Customer deliveries are confirmed for late 2026. The automotive and aerospace industries spent 80 years failing to build a flying car. XPeng spent 5 years deciding not to build one and built something better. Let us be precise about what happened at the Nürburgring Nordschleife on the 28th of October 2024. The Porsche Taycan Turbo GT, the fastest production 4-door car in recorded history, built by a company with 75 years of uninterrupted motorsport heritage, held the Nordschleife lap record, 6 minutes, 54 seconds, a time that Porsche's engineers had invested years of active development, testing, and track-specific calibration to achieve, a number that the entire performance car industry treated as the benchmark. The car that broke it was built by a company that had been manufacturing automobiles for exactly 7 months. Xiaomi, the Chinese consumer electronics group best known globally for smartphones, smart televisions, laptops, and home appliances, launched its first production car, the SU7, in March 2024. 7 months later, Its performance variant, the SU7 Ultra prototype, lapped the Nordschleife in 6 minutes, 46.874 seconds, 8 seconds faster than Porsche's fastest production four-door car. 8 seconds, on a circuit where fractions of a single second represent months of dedicated engineering development. The production version of the SU7 Ultra subsequently confirmed the fastest ever production electric four-door lap time, 7 minutes and 4.957 seconds, 1,548 horsepower from a 3-motor system, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 1.97 seconds. Top speed, 350 kilometers per hour. Carbon ceramic braking system developed specifically for Nordschleife load cycles. Active aerodynamics tuned across hundreds of test laps. Xiaomi built this car with zero motorsport heritage. No decades of platform development. No Formula One supply chain relationships. No Stuttgart engineering culture built across 3 generations of performance vehicles. They entered the automotive industry in 2024. They broke Porsche's record the same year. In Germany, on Porsche's circuit, in front of Porsche's engineers. The rule said, phone companies make phones. Xiaomi makes phones, smart home devices, laptops, and now the fastest production four-door car ever to lap the Nordschleife. Look at what happened across these 5 vehicles taken together. A pickup truck that combines diesel combustion with plug-in hybrid electrification. A powertrain combination that every engineering department on Earth declared unviable in production form. An engine that broke the thermal efficiency ceiling that had stood for 100 years, not by 1% or 2%, but by 7 full percentage points above Toyota's gold standard. An SUV that crossed the Yangtze River under its own power. Not waded nervously through a shallow crossing, not floated helplessly, but drove with active steering and gyroscopic control. A 6x6 ground vehicle that deploys a 2-seat aircraft from its rear section, solving the 80-year flying car problem by refusing to build a flying car. And a consumer electronics company that went to Germany and broke Porsche's lap record on Porsche's benchmark circuit in Porsche's home country in the same year it sold its very first car. This is not incremental progress. Incremental progress is a slightly larger touchscreen, a marginally extended range, a fractionally quicker charging time. This is something categorically different from anything the automotive industry has produced in living memory. China did not enter the automotive industry to build better versions of the cars that already existed. China entered the automotive industry to find out which rules were actually rules, and which were simply habits that nobody had questioned, because questioning them was considered either arrogant or naive. The answer, as it turns out, is most of them. The industry spent 100 years building walls. China spent 5 years finding out which ones were load-bearing. Most of them were not. The walls are down. The rulebook is finished. And the question every boardroom in Stuttgart, Munich, Detroit, and Tokyo is now asking quietly, urgently, and very much off the record, is a simple one. What else did we get wrong? Because if diesel plug-in hybrid pickups were possible, if 48% thermal efficiency was achievable, if cars can cross rivers and carry aircraft and be built by phone companies faster than Porsche, if all of that was sitting there waiting to be discovered, then the rulebook was never protecting engineering truth. It was protecting market position. And market position, as 5 Chinese vehicles just demonstrated, is not the same thing as impossible.